All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Halkins. We're so glad to be joined by Carlos Childs, and we're making Carlos a more and more of a regular. How are you today, Carlos?
Good. You know, I love it. I love it how always being here with you and all the Halitics people. So glad to be here.
All the Halitics people with you and me, that I think what gets us up to about 5. By the way, please, 240-242-5646, join us. And I've heard a lot of positives about Carlos obviously being on the show. Mostly it's when I listen to myself talking to other people, but a lot of, everyone loves Carlos, and you are great. You really know there's a lot of energy, youth, the whole intelligence. I mean, we could go on and on, but I'm not going to do that, Carlos. We're going to talk about Charlie Kirk, but really, I don't want to sit here and bash Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is who he is. To me, the reaction, you can go off and tell us how bad Kirk is, and that's certainly going to be part of this. But to me, the real story is the complete, not only the failure of the Democratic Party to even criticize Kirk, but actually they're bending over backwards to jump on the Charlie Kirk bandwagon. And you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing ever, having where Democrats are trying to rehabilitate Charlie Kirk. I think it's even worse than the whole rehabilitation that we saw in the 2024 campaign around the Cheney family. They took Liz and Dick Cheney, two of the most warmongering, horrible people that we've ever seen in American politics, rehabilitated them into some big democracy, pro-freedom fighter, pro-war people, and just try to put them on a pedestal. This seems like 2.0 for that, and trying to make a actual white supremacist seem like a better figure. My thing that I've been thinking about too is, if they're doing this to Charlie Kirk now, what are they going to do when David Duke dies? Are we going to start talking about him like, hey, he just had different views on things?
It wasn't so bad. I mean, that's certainly what we can expect. And, the Cheney family were torturers, but one thing you could kind of understand about the support that, Kamala with her bestie, Liz Cheney, going around, one thing you could kind of maybe understand is at least Cheney was critical of Trump, who was, according to the Democrats, and with good reason, really just a horrible person and a fascist and all that. But Cheney said no, the Cheneys didn't like Trump, and Liz Cheney certainly endorsed Kamala. But Charlie Kirk was instrumental in getting this, the man who Democrats insist is the worst president ever. And I have to acknowledge he's in the running now. I never thought he was. He wasn't after his first term. I think he is now. Kirk was full-on supporter of Trump, and yet they still bend over backwards to extol the man who called for imprisoning, if not executing, Joe Biden.
Yeah. The Democrats' ability to coddle up to the worst people and try to make them seem better will never cease to astonish me. I mean, you're right. You can give it to Liz and Dick Cheney for saying, hey, look, at least they're anti-Trump and all that. But there's literally in my opinion, there's no redeeming qualities of a Charlie Kirk. There's nothing that anyone outside of, if I'm being gracious, conservative people, if I'm being literal, probably racist people, racist people who like Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk had a faction of the Republican Party that was the most conservative, a lot of them racist, a lot of them anti-LGBTQ, anti-Jewish, all that. And, this is who the Democrats want to give a holiday.
Kirk, towards the end, it does appear that Kirk was turning a little bit against Israel. And for that, I give him grudging credit. I mean, to the extent he did platform Dave Smith at Turning Point USA 25, he deserves some credit for that, I will say. We're going to start, as we always do. I mean, we billboard the show, but just real quick, the situation continues to be absolutely horrific in Gaza. And this was one of the reasons I was really, really critical of Charlie Kirk, because up until the very end, he did use dehumanizing language to describe Palestinians. He was completely supportive of Israel's genocide. And as you know, Carlos, right now, that is the most important issue for me. So that was a huge reason. I wouldn't say a huge. There was a significant reason for my harsh criticism of Kirk. There are many others as well. The Gaza death toll now 65,300 plus, according to Anadolu Ajansi. And we just will keep seeing the numbers rise and more bodies found as well. The Hamas ministry, I shouldn't say Hamas, the Ministry of Health there in Palestine, which is considered very reliable, very credible, has come up with a number of 65,344 killed since October 7 by Israel, 170 reported dead since Friday, and we have Trump and Netanyahu alone responsible for close to 13,000 now. So this is to me the worst thing I've seen in my lifetime this country do. So I mean that.
No, you're right. This is, and we keep saying it, but we can't say it enough. This is being paid for and brought to you by the U.S. taxpayer funds. I mean, Israel would not be able to do any of this without the U.S.'s backing and without their okay. And it's always weird to me that we as a country will send aid over to Gaza. The aid will get rejected at the border, and then we're still giving Israel the bombs when we don't even get the aid that we're paying for sent out. So we're paying double, triple and having food just sit there and waste while we still give that country the bombs and weapons and technology to continue a genocide and a slaughter of people who just want their home back. And this is even to the people who now, you see a lot of countries who are now saying that we recognize Palestine as a state, all that. The U.S. still does not do that. And at the same time, what's crazy to me is at the same time you have Democrats who are saying that, we want a two-state solution. A two-state solution at this point isn't even realistic because there is no state of Palestine to even have without it being a one-state solution. And two, how do we have a two-state solution and we don't even as a country recognize the other state?
Right. Well, I mean, exactly. And that's, J Street is always saying, well, we need to recognize the Palestinian people and their right to self-determination. I don't think Joe Biden did. Maybe Barack Obama did at the very end of his presidency. I think he talked about that. I'm not clear, so I might be wrong, but he kind of broke with Israel at the very end. But again, it was kind of a dollar late or a dollar short and way too late. And that's what we're seeing also, I think, from House Dems, from Senate Dems, from Bernie Sanders finally calling it a genocide. Okay.
Finally.
That's great.
And what do we get with
do
that?
anything at this point.
Hooray, you said it. Hooray, you're finally catching up. That doesn't do anything for the people there. And then on top of that, too, I'm always glad how that you give the numbers, and then also just reminding people those are like a very conservative numbers too, because you have people who are starving to death who may not be counted, people who are still who they still don't know about, people who may have died after a bomb had gone off and then had a heart attack after it, and that may just be seen as a heart attack death, not a death from the genocide as well.
So a picture, I didn't put this in the slides, Carlos. I didn't want to spend too much time with slides. I have a few clips to play and certainly want your take on everything. But I'm going to show this because this image just really, for whatever reason, if I can find it here, I posted, I think at Halitics, maybe it was on my Hal Ginsberg site, but it was, a picture of this port in Gaza. And so let me see if I can get this on screen. For some reason, this just really, really, I don't know, spoke to me and spoke to why it seems so obvious that the death count must be, many times higher than 63,000. In this very small strip of land, there were well over 2 million people living. And here's the seaport of Gaza. You can see below, before Israel began its ethnic cleansing / genocide in earnest, there's color, there's houses. It was still being oppressed. This was still really an open air concentration camp, but people could live. And now it's just a moonscape. This is what Israel has done with our bombs, with our weapons.
Wow. That I'm glad that you showed that picture, because it kind of it puts it in better perspective for people too. Is to see that even under the concentration camp like state that they were in, there was still this sense of like community that they would build, of still like having a life there. And you see now the destruction just within 2 years. This is just, and we're not even at 2 years yet. We're coming up in 2 years within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and this is still going on, and we're still hand over fist funding this. All the while, elected officials tell us we're in a recession and we can't have nice things.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Carlos with us, 240-242-5646. I'll try to check the chat. I can't promise I'll do that. I know we get some nice comments there. I'll do my best. Don't forget, click subscribe if you haven't yet done so. I want to get up to, I've been saying you get to 1,000 subscribers, Carlos, to get monetized. Apparently 500 will do it. Okay. Not a lot of money, but I saw somebody with about 100,000 subscribers talking about her monetization. She was making $100,000 now a year. Now that seems like an awful lot. That I think she does a lot of financial, but it'd be nice to get something for all the time and energy I put into this. I'll do it no matter what. But hey, and maybe Carlos will benefit too, because my regulars, I definitely will spread the love, if you will. Ooh, all right, 240-242-5646. Don't forget to click like as well. Any interactions, I say, help us. Every interaction helps us go forward, move forward. Carlos, but I like I said, I don't want to spend too much time with the different clips. I do have one with one of our favorites, Brianna Joy Gray, on with Sabby. I know you like Sabby. I like Sabby okay. Sometimes I feel like she's a little, they both talk a lot, but then I talk a lot, so I have a nerve to complain about them. We'll get to Brianna Joy, but does the support that the Democratic Party gave to Israel before the 24 election, was that like the last straw for you? It kind of was for me, but I don't know whether, because what do? Do we abandon the Democrats, as Brianna Joy Gray says, and what does that look like?
Yeah. For me, if I'm being honest, the genocide wasn't the final straw for me. It was more so just another item on the list of all the problems with the Democratic Party. For me, universal healthcare has been the one biggest thing. So if you're a presidential candidate and you're not even supporting universal healthcare, you can't get my support. But I think there is no reforming the Democratic Party at this time. Now, my personal view is that I think people should vote for third-party candidates whenever possible, Green Party, PSL, Independent, whoever. And I think if you're in a state that has closed primaries, I would even say still stay within the Democratic Party as far as what you're registered as. Vote for whatever Democrat you feel like may be the best option out of them. And if that Democrat doesn't win, vote third party, or vote for whatever Democrat in the primary you think is best and still vote third party. Because here in Maryland, it's a closed primary. If you're not registered as a Democrat or Republican, basically you have no say in the primary. And then a lot of times, especially where I live more in the southern part of Maryland, there is no kind of third party presence here. A lot of our ballots just say Democrat, Republican in the general. So I'd say register as a Democrat if it's no other viable primaries to get into, and then just don't vote for them in the general. Sometimes I just leave certain races blank because I just don't like the Democrat and I don't like the Republican.
Yeah, I won't vote. I didn't vote for example, I didn't vote for Jamie Raskin in the last election here, although there was a Green candidate that I did vote for. Good. But I wouldn't have voted for Raskin even if there had been no Green to vote for. All right, let's play. This is a clip of Charlie Kirk. I don't think this is the worst thing Charlie Kirk has said. There's a lot of
there's a lot to pick from.
There's a lot of competition, but to me, it stands out. We'll play it for you.
I mean, Joe Biden is a bumbling, dementia-filled, Alzheimer's, corrupt tyrant who should honestly be put in prison and/or given the death penalty for his crimes against America.
All right, so I don't like Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden did some really bad things. I would even support prosecuting Joe Biden for war crimes, much as I would support prosecuting Trump for war crimes. But if he's going to say that about a Democrat, the Democratic president, who we were told for years was the most progressive president, the best friend labor has had in the White House for 90 years, then how do you explain this, Carlos? Because I got to play the clip. I just got to do this. How do you explain that? I want you to. You are charged, Carlos Childs, with explaining this.
Congress is honoring conservative influencer Charlie Kirk before his memorial service Sunday as well by passing a resolution creating a national day of remembrance. The Senate voting unanimously Thursday to designate that day as October 14th, which is Kirk's birthday.
All right, so the Senate voted unanimously, Carlos. Now that means Chuck Schumer, the leader of the party, Bernie Sanders, an independent, so-called, who often referred to Joe Biden as his friend, his dear friend. Now, she says they vote for it. As I understand, the vote actually was simply no objection, right? It was by consensus. So I have no problem with saying they voted for it. Technically, they didn't raise their hand and say, yes, we support it, but nobody objected. So I think that means they voted for it. How do you explain that, Carlos?
Okay, I'm going to give you a corporate Democrat response, and then I'm going to give you my personal response. Oh, wow. The reason that the Senate Democrats voted for this is because if we didn't, we would have saw a huge overturn of just Republicans saying the Democrats are calling for political violence to happen. And we have to show we're against political violence and that we stand for everybody. And everyone has the right to freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want to, and it doesn't matter. Now, my personal response is, all that's BS. This is Democrats saying to, I won't even say they're a base at this point, because I don't think they could even care to talk to their base. What this is really saying is that we have no backbone to stand on our own values and say, no, we do not agree with Charlie Kirk. What happened to him was bad. No one should just be shot and killed. I would have just left it at that. I would have voted no for it and said, fine. Actually, I think there should have been Democrats who can stand on their 2 feet and say, I'm going to vote no. To force there to be a roll call vote. Force the Senate Democrats to go one by one and say whether you support there being a National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk. There was no National Day of Remembrance for Philando Castile, for George Floyd, for Trayvon Martin, for Breonna Taylor, for the host of Black people who have been killed by the police, who Charlie Kirk had no consideration for or care for. I mean, how Juneteenth took over 160 years for us to get a day of remembrance for Juneteenth. Charlie Kirk dies within a few weeks. Oh, we must dignify him and deity him to have a holiday.
Well, Sabby pointed out that, I believe it was Sabby, that Dr. King was not voted unanimously a holiday. That I believe Dick Cheney at that time in Congress voted against a Martin Luther King Day. Now, I guess you could make a distinction and say, I don't think there's going to be a Charlie Kirk Day. It's not going to be a national holiday. But even to talk about them in the same breath is to me very, very offensive to the memory of Dr. King. And I've heard a lot of conservatives. I mean, they really, this guy was really, really important to people, and I'm not going to deny it. I mean, to many conservatives, and I don't, I think let me say this about the Democrats. Do you think, before we get to the conservative, empathy for Kirk, or their feeling that he was part of them, do you think the Democrats have a point, though, that, well, yeah, we didn't like him and he went after us and he said that our president should be executed and all that, but we're political animals, and politically it would be bad if we didn't join the Republicans in calling for a day of commemoration?
No, because I don't like, this isn't, no one's asking for this but the conservative activists who like Charlie Kirk. There's no one in my knowledge on the Democratic Party who is saying, no, we have to martyr Charlie Kirk and hold him up. Like how, and you mentioned it, I believe, when after Charlie Kirk died, that there were, what was it, in Minnesota, there was a murder of some Democratic officials. you don't see Democrats saying, fine, if you want to recognize Charlie Kirk Day, we're going to recognize these people's day. This is Charlie Kirk's moment. This is his moment in the sun, his moment to shine. And it doesn't make sense that Democrats are going out of their way to, again, appease Republicans and appease conservative. Well, you know what? Let me even go past the whole political party thing. They're really saying we're going to appease white supremacists and make them feel happy and good that and feel bad that their person died. I'm sorry. Charlie Kirk is somebody who I have almost no empathy for at this point, because I know if Charlie Kirk was a black person who died, Charlie Kirk would not have had any empathy for that person or care what happened to that person. He may have tried to make it seem like, well, it's their fault. And I have to go back to Charlie Kirk's quote, hey, the Second Amendment, we have it, and some people are going to die. So, hey.
Well, I mean, to try to play a little bit of devil's advocate there, I mean, it certainly appears, and I don't know the backstory, that he and Candace Owens were friendly or close friends even. She certainly refers to him as her dear friend. Yeah. She's getting a huge audience. She's a black woman. So, I don't know personal life. He said many things. He was very nasty, I thought, very unpleasant to Breonna Joy Gray, treated her terribly when he interviewed her. I don't have a clip of that. You and I don't quite see eye to eye on affirmative action, DEI issues. I don't call him a racist because he opposed affirmative action. I think you can oppose affirmative action and not be a racist. I call him a racist because he was against the Civil Rights Act, which actually barred discrimination. I call him a racist because he said that Martin Luther King was an awful person. We have a clip of him conceding he called him a bad person. And there is definitely from Snopes a confirmation he used the term awful. And this is recent. This isn't 10 years ago. This isn't when he was in high school. This was just a couple of years ago. So this was a great man. This was one of the greatest. I always put Martin Luther, Dr. King at the top of my list of great Americans. Because he freed people from a terrible system that unfortunately we still have many vestiges of, and in some ways we haven't progressed at all, certainly when it comes to poverty. So those are the reasons I have huge issues with Kirk. And also, he showed no empathy. He even said, I have no empathy. You want to oppose affirmative action. Okay. Then come up with some other solutions. How are you going to help people who are poor, who are struggling, who are not able to enjoy what they should be able to enjoy as part of this society? He couldn't have cared less about that stuff. So that's why I have huge issues with Kirk.
I agree with you. I mean, even from him saying that the fact that the Civil Rights Act passed and you can't discriminate on people based on race was a horrible thing. Him saying that makes him. Why would I have empathy for a person like that? But also, I understand that Charlie Kirk was not someone who was trying to win over me or trying to win over people who think my similar thought process. He's trying to win over his own base of people, with which he accomplished that. Hooray to him. It to me just shows who people really are. And I mean, again, that's why my question to start was, if they're acting like this because Charlie Kirk died, what are they going to do when David Duke died? Because to me, the only difference between the two is David Duke, when he dies, he won't be in his heyday.
Yeah, well, the thing about David Duke, he doesn't have an audience. I mean, Charlie Kirk was a very, very influential leader with millions of followers, and I think that's the reason. David Duke let's face it, that's the reason they're doing it. They don't care what he said, and it doesn't. So you mentioned before. I want to play this clip, and I will in a moment of more Breonna Joy Gray, but. Just briefly, a lot of African American leaders did vote for the Kirk Day. And you did express some surprise that U.S. Senator Alsobrooks from Maryland didn't vote against that. I wasn't surprised, but why were you, or if you were?
I was surprised. I guess I agree with you. I shouldn't have been surprised knowing how these people are. But what surprised me was just the no sense of just understanding, either not understanding who this man was and the hatred he spewed, and seeing that you supporting him has no positives for you or does nothing for you. And then I'm also surprised just thinking at sometimes, like, when we have these black leaders, or I fret to even call them leaders. When you have these black elected officials, it's almost like sometimes they don't recognize their own humanity to say, hey, look, I'm not going to not just devalue black people by trying to say, oh yes, let's give this man a holiday. He is a recognizable person. What he was talking about was great. But even to say, I'm not going to vote for someone to have a holiday that was even against me as a person. And to me, there's no positives for Angela Alsobrooke voting for, but I kind of hold her to account more than some other senators just because she is my senator. So I'm gonna have a little bit of more a problem with her. But I even look at people like Cory Booker, who made this big grandstand what I call it a fake filibuster because there was no bill he was even doing it for. But he did all this grandstanding, trying to position himself as a presidential candidate, and then you're gonna support this. And to me, what surprises me even more about the senators doing it unanimously is that the people in the House didn't. You have in Maryland Kwesi Mfume, who used to be the head of the NAACP, but also Glenn Ivey, who's a black congressman too. They voted against it. So it's like, do you all not even talk to your congressmen, your fellow Congress people, and say, hey, why are you voting against it? Should I vote against it? And at least have a conversation with them, or talk to your community first and say, hey, what do y'all think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all good points. I really don't know whether Chuck Schumer read the Riot Act to the other senators, which, by the way, I don't see why that has any impact anyway. So what if Chuck Schumer tells me you got to vote for this bill? That doesn't mean I have to vote for the bill. I don't take orders from you. I got elected. I have my own base of support. You don't determine whether I get elected. I will determine that. I also think if you're a senator in Maryland, voting for Charlie Kirk Day does not help you in any way, especially given who Angela Alsobrooke's base is, which is definitely the African-American community in Maryland, which is the largest by percentage, I think, of any state. I was perhaps, honestly, Carlos, I was more disappointed that Chris Van Hollen did not vote against this bill, because he has been, in my view, one of the better senators, and he spoke up. He spoke out against the cruel immigration policies of Trump, which, by the way, Charlie Kirk totally supported. Van Hollen has been one of the more outspoken U.S. senators against the pro-Zionist genocidal policies of both Trump and his predecessor, Biden, which Kirk, up until very recently, was fully on board with. So I actually expected a little more, to be honest with you, from Chris Van Hollen than from Angela Alsobrooke. So Van Hollen disappointed me in that regard. The House, as I understand it, Hakeem Jeffries kind of said, I'm going to support this bill, which of course he shouldn't have. But he apparently said, I'm going to support this bill, but he told his caucus, you can do whatever you like. And maybe he did that because he felt he would be, he would be completely overswamped. They weren't going to listen anyway. I don't know. I don't think Jasmine Crockett, under any circumstances, would have voted for that bill, for example.
No. And to a point, I don't know why any of them care what Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries think. They're probably two of the most hated politicians now. Honestly, Hakeem Jeffries is positioning himself to be in the same mold as Nancy Pelosi, hated amongst everyone except the donor class. And Chuck Schumer, people recently were calling for Chuck Schumer to step down as the minority leader. So to me, why anyone in Congress would be saying, yeah, let's listen to two of the most hated people amongst our base is insane to me. I can just imagine if Charlie Kirk was on the left and said said things bashing white people or bashing the conservatives, stuff like that. If Mitch McConnell was Senate minority leader, he would have whipped his people to say, you better not vote for this. And you better go to your districts and talk about how Democrats are fueling political violence and fueling hatred by supporting this.
It's very tough, though, for Democrats, because if they try to go after Charlie Kirk, the response is going to be, I think, for most people, including from me, okay, again, you're against something, but what are you for? What are you for? Now, of course, they should be against a Charlie Kirk Day, but if they went to their district and started saying this is the worst thing that Republicans have ever done, I'd say it is really bad, but you want us to vote for you. Why? You know what I mean, that's the thing that they're up against. They stand for nothing.
No, there's no people feel like there's no Democratic agenda platform. And yes, the DNC will pass agendas and platforms and all that. That doesn't really mean anything. We see that Democrats just do whatever they want to, but they've built a party up that's not around policies. It's around personality. And I think that's one thing that they took away from Trump was that you don't need policy, you just need performance. And the problem is Trump doesn't have policy behind him, but at least his performance comes off as more genuine. And
I actually will disagree with you a little bit. I think there was policy behind Trump. You might not like his policies. Well, he was very clear on trade. He wanted tariffs. That's a policy. You may not like it. Whereas Kamala didn't really have a response to that except to say it's a sales tax, right? She kept saying that it's a sales tax, but she didn't come up with an alternative way to build, for example, create more jobs. Trump said, hey, tariffs will bring jobs back to this country. Trump was against the Ukraine war. He said he was. I'm not saying he and apparently, he certainly has been kind of giving Russia a green light at this point. But that was a policy, and it was an unpopular war, and Harris really took no position. So I think, to be fair to Republican voters at least, Trump did have policies. You might totally disagree with them, and he doesn't necessarily pursue them. But you got to have something, and they have just nothing up their sleeve. Even like I was saying, and again, I'm trying to be a little bit controversial here, but I think there's truth to it. When Charlie Kirk when he talked to white working class, or he went to college campuses, but they weren't necessarily Ivy League campuses. There would be community colleges like Utah Valley State, for example, and a lot of the people at those campuses are not affluent, or they're not going to be wealthy doctors or lawyers or brokers. And he would say, and he's in fact did say, Michelle Obama and some other women, I can't remember the ones he was talking about, Sheila Jackson Lee, they took a white person's spot. That's what he would say, as though somehow, which there was so much wrong with that statement. I don't want to get into all what's wrong with it, but he was saying to the people at those schools, hey, the reason you're going to Utah Valley State and not Harvard is because some black woman took your spot that you're entitled to, that you deserve. He was promising them, so we'll get rid of it. your kids will be going to these top schools. Probably not, but who knows? I mean, regardless, he was promising them something, but Harris never came back with, yes, we're going to make sure that you have debt-free education. We're going to make sure that colleges and universities, are available, and you can go, and you're not going to, So Kirk promised them something. Trump, as I understand, by the way, I don't know if you know this. This is sort of by way of, I read somewhere, Carlos, I got to look this up, that Trump has actually been funding HBCUs. Have you heard that?
I heard that too, that there's like more funding go. I remember in his first term, there's a big conversation about how like he was funding HBCUs more than the previous presidents. I haven't looked into it this term or not. I've heard about it. I just haven't fully delved into it, but I need to.
If that's true, I mean, that's a good, from my perspective, maybe disagree. I think that's a really good thing. If that's true, I mean, we should be funding those schools. Those are opportunities for mostly not, again, affluent kids, and they get a really good education. Those are nice schools. Maybe I'm missing something, Carlos. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Same. No, same here. I'm putting something in our chat now. I just looked it up on Google real quick, and there's an article from CNN that's talking about it's just the headline from it just says Trump administration boosts HBCU funding after cutting grants for Hispanic serving colleges. So it seems like, just from the headline, it's more of what Trump does. I'm going to put this community against this community. Look, I'm not going to say that it's bad that he's funding HBCU. So I'm not going to say that part. I do think that he shouldn't take money from one group to give it to the other. But even on your earlier point, about how Charlie Kirk goes to these colleges and then say, oh, this is the reason why you can't go to Harvard, is because so many Black people are taking your spots. I understand why that works for like white people to join that coalition and that cohort of thought. The problem to me a lot of time is that you only kind of see that being pushed towards white people, really. Like to me, there's always been this big concerted effort of whenever it comes to why white people are more in the mindset of, it's other people coming and taking my jobs. We need to do something about it. You see, it is white people who can buy that mentality, and the answer has always been, okay, well, we need to go to their communities and understand why they're not doing well, and try to sell them on how we can all come together. When it's the Black community who's doing bad, we don't get the sold of it's white people taking your jobs, and that's why we can't do better. So, white people need to come to us and say, well, here's how we're all going to grow together. It seems to me like white people are always allowed to kind of hate everyone else why they're not doing well, and then it all work out by everyone else just showing appreciation and empathy for them. But I don't find it both ways.
I don't have a response to that at this point. What I would say is, I think what the left needs to do is come up with solutions that address poverty, period. Because there's Black poverty, there's white poverty, there's some Asian. I mean, Asians are actually less impoverished. I try to be as honest as possible.
No, you're right.
Like, I won't talk about Jewish poverty. There aren't a lot of poor Jews. There's some, but to me, the first thing we do is make sure everyone has a home. Nobody's sleeping under bridges. Nobody's begging in the streets. And I love hey, help colleges and universities that do serve underprivileged, disadvantaged students. So I think it was kind of amazing to me when I saw Trump did that, but it may have also been some sort of political thing that he was, who knows what was in his mind. Maybe he has the right idea there. I don't know. I want to play this clip here. This is kind of Brianna Joy Gray saying what I've been thinking a lot. And I wanted to show this clip. Carlos, before we play that clip, let's do this real quick. Mm-hmm. This is an interesting tweet, or X, by David Sirota. And I actually really appreciated it. And I also appreciated my response to the tweet. So here's what Sirota writes, or he quotes, "Wake up, Patriot. Many Dems are now leaning towards a Harris-Buttigieg ticket for 28. What's your reaction?" So Sirota's, it's important that Dems never learn anything for our entire lives. And then I wrote, they're paid not to learn. Have you learned that? Because Sirota never calls out Democratic corruption.
Yeah.
I think Harris-Buttigieg is about the worst ticket I can imagine, but maybe you have a different, I don't know.
I don't know who that appeals to. I don't know who are the people who are sitting at home saying, wow, yeah, Tim Walz, he was good, but if it was Harris and Buttigieg, that would have pushed them over the edge. To me, no one wants that. Buttigieg, honestly, Buttigieg in 2020 had more support than Kamala Harris did.
And Buttigieg, by the way, his record is very bad, especially with African Americans, right? Did you and I discuss that? He has a horrible track record with police brutality when he was mayor of South Bend against African Americans. He promoted a white cop with a very bad record.
Yep. I mean, how? I remember it was during the presidential election, Black people from his own town were telling people do not vote for him, and he should withdraw from being president because of how horrible he was. So yeah.
Well, maybe the theory is that if you have Harris on the ticket, that'll make it okay.
I don't see that. You know what? I can actually from a corporate Democrat standpoint, I can see their thought process for it, because if you have Harris will get the black support, and then Buttigieg gets your white moderate support, maybe that can create a coalition. The problem is both of them are highly egotistical. Both of them are highly about themselves, and both of them don't really have any policy behind them either. And it's kind of like it's kind of lackluster between both of them. So I can see it being like it being the same thing as the Harris's 2024 campaign. The first few weeks, so much energy around it. Oh my gosh, the first black woman nominee, the first openly gay vice presidential nominee. Once they both start talking and people hear that it's nothing, that dies off really, really quickly. And people
well,
are
this
just
is the thing
done.
about Harris too. Like we talk about Buttigieg's bad record when it comes to voters of color, people of color, Americans of color. Harris actually has a very bad record also when it comes to Americans of color. And it was reflected in the vote. That actually was reflected in the vote. So I don't know who they think they're going to be appealing to with that narrow, it seems like a narrow casting.
I think
but for the billionaire elites, it's a win-win because we win if they win, and we win if it's, J.D. Vance. So either way, we win. Yeah. So that explains it.
Yeah, we give the base representation, and we give the billionaire class and the donor class policy, and then we rock out that way. And I mean, yeah, I don't see a winning strategy for either of them, honestly, in 2028. Neither of them to be the presidential candidates. And I think, but one thing I do think the reason that Kamala Harris said this in her book was because she's worried, in my opinion, to have Buttigieg run against her for president 2028. And if I already typecast you as a vice president for me, it makes it hard for you to say, oh no, put me as the president, not Kamala Harris.
240-242-5646 from Zaina in the chat. 10/4 is George Floyd's birthday. By 10/14, sorry, she said 10/4. I did not know his birthday. I'm not sure why. Is October 14th, because it was October 7th. I'm not sure how 10/14 came up, but apparently it's George Floyd's birthday. The insult to the intelligence of all of us who look beyond the tokenization and focus on their records is glaring. So Zaina is saying that it's an insult to progressives to even consider a Buttigieg Harris ticket because their records are so corporatist and their records are so militarist and reflect zero concern for poor, struggling, working class Americans. I could not agree with that statement. More Zaina often with really good, smart comments, and she does so yet again. Carlos, let's play BJG and Sabby.
Oh,
I don't know. Does anyone else call her BJG? It's just a lot. That's a long name, although I'm the only one.
Real quick, and this is to the commenter's point. I didn't realize George Floyd's birthday and Charlie Kirk's birthday are the same day.
Oh, was the 14th? Oh, because the 14th is Charlie Kirk Day. That's birthday, okay. That's where
and George Floyd's birthday. Yeah.
So call it Kirk Floyd Day, like Lincoln Jackson Day, or whatever Martin Luther King, Robert E. Lee Day, or whatever Virginia tried to do for a while there with that nonsense. I real quick again, I see people comparing King and Kirk, and it just drives me absolutely insane. Dr. King fought for poor, struggling, working people. Charlie Kirk really fought for himself. He was a grifter. He made himself incredibly rich in a short period of time. He had 3 houses. He had a multi-million-dollar house outside of Phoenix. He wasn't in it they're not the same. These things are so different in so many different ways.
No, he was paid for and bought by a mix of Zionists and just corporate conservative elites. That's it. Like, he was not some great savior of the white working class as he tries to image himself as.
Yeah, Max Blumenthal made a really good point that he was sort of plucked. He was very early in his career. Some Zionists or influencers saw him and they thought, this guy has got something. He's really reaching people. Let's buy him up. Let's take control of him. And they did. And it looks like at the very end, he was recoiling a little bit against the Israel strings that really had him, jumping, right? Like they were pulling his strings and he didn't like that. And the theory now, at least Candace Owens is promoting that Israel killed him. And I would like to believe that, but I just don't see the evidence for that.
Yeah. I don't know if I fully believe that Israel did it. I think that Israel is definitely taking advantage of his death by saying, oh no, he's still a supporter of ours. This is an anti-Israel thing. To me, I look at Charlie Kirk as a more kind of presentable version of Nick Fuentes. Like it's just more presentable without the overarching theatrics.
I think that I could believe Israel killed Kirk if he had turned against Israel. The problem is, again, the evidence, as far as I've seen, nothing supports that theory. I think what supports the theory, I think what's most likely is that Tyler Robinson said exactly what he believed. He'd had enough of the hatred. He had a boyfriend who was going to become a girlfriend who was transitioning. I'm trying to just use their terminology. I'm not demeaning anybody, but that's my understanding. Tyler Robinson had a romantic interest who was a male who was going to become a girl, woman, and he had enough of the hatred. That seems clear. There's no connection to Israel whatsoever. Israel might have been mad at him. Israel might be totally benefiting from this. Trump might be benefiting from this, right? But that seems to me by far the most likely. Now I could change. We could always see things differently. Let's play Brianna Joy Gray here, or Carlos.
It's exhausting. Like, I almost don't even want to talk about it anymore. Like, Democrats are horrible, and it feels like our job at this point is just to make it so clear to voters that there's no, like, the call is coming from inside the house. Like, there's no help coming. You need to divest from this party, and you're wasting.
Do you get that reference? The call is coming from inside the house. Do you know what that's from?
I don't get it, but I kind of just try to understand what that means.
Well, it's from the movie When a Stranger Calls.
Oh,
and yeah, it's a 1981, I think, horror movie. One of the scariest movies I ever saw. I remember watching it when I was in college. I was so scared out of my mind. It was on cable. We were coming back from Ultimate Frisbee tournament. We stopped at this guy's house and we watched, and we got chicken. We watched it, and it was the scariest thing I ever saw. But there's a babysitter, and these calls keep coming. They're like, check the children.
Oh.
And then she calls the police, and then they say, we trace the call. It's from inside the house. So then the children were all murdered by this killer.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's what she's saying, is the Democrat Party is not going to help you. They're not calling to help you. They're calling because they're part of the problem. They're
in the house.
They're
waiting
not
for
there
you
to help you. And I think it's exactly on point. So she says her job is to get people to stop being Democrat. That's what I think is my job, but I don't. The problem is there's not really a legit alternative at this point.
I agree with you, and I almost hate to say that too, because then it puts more people in the mindset of, well, I have to vote Democrat because there's nothing else. And there are alternatives. The problem is that you're right. The system isn't set up to have as viable as alternatives unless you go down, like once you get down to like the localized level. Yes, you have some independent people who run. You have Green Party who see success at the local level. The problem is outside of the local level, when a lot of the major decisions that affect us happen, there are no other alternatives but a Republican or Democrat. And to a point, I know some people who work within like the Maryland Democratic Party, Young Democrats, things like that. It's getting increasingly harder for me to see the value in even saying, well, let's like try to move the Democratic Party left, because as we see, we can elect left-leaning people to the Democratic Party. If you work within a system, at some point the system is going to change you. And the problem is if the Democratic Party was structured as the Republican Party is, as far as like, I would think that you could actually change the party. The problem is that they're not. And what makes it easier for Republicans is they're not fighting against the donor class of the party. They're fighting against the cultural part of the party. Whereas in the Democratic Party, it's more so leftists are fighting the actual donor class than the culture side, because to a point culturally we all kind of agree as Democrats are concerned.
Well, I think you make a really, really good point, because the cultural conservatives and the more cultural liberals in the Republican Party both are on the side of the billionaire class. But on the Democratic side, where do you go? Because you could say the same thing, right? You could say in the Democratic Party, the cultural liberals and the cultural conservatives are both on the side of the billionaire class. But
Yep.
Regardless, you're going to lose elections. You can be for DEI and you can be for using pronouns, but as long as you're also for Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris, you're going to lose elections. And you can be the opposite. You can say, oh, the whole problem is that we embrace the trans ideology, but you're still going to lose elections unless you're willing to demand Medicare for all and peace and pro-environment policies. And that costs you bigly, because you want your golden parachute. And that's why the whole thing with Charlie Kirk versus Dr. King to me is such a phony argument, because Dr. King consistently challenged wealth and power. He couldn't have been in it for the money, because what he did was taking away money and wealth from what he tried to do. War on poverty, fighting for working people, fighting against segregation and racism. All of that was goring the rich man's ox. That's not what Charlie Kirk did.
No, Charlie Kirk. I mean, honestly, you look at who funds Turning Point USA was a bunch of wealthy mega donors anyway. So he always knew who fed him. So he continued to push with those people. And yeah, any comparison to him to Martin Luther King, I find just abhorrent and disgusting. To me, compare the man to who he should be compared to. People like David Duke, Nick Fuentes, his bedfellows in this.
Yeah. All right. More from Brianna Joy Gray.
Time and energy thinking that anything is good going to happen. They're too busy fighting against Zohran Mamdani, right? And Ilhan Omar, than they are fighting against Donald Trump.
Right. Let me stop it there for a second. So, of course, I agree with what she says, but the argument I've heard, and I heard this from a PDA leader, Progressive Democrats of America leader, hey, Mamdani, Ilhan Omar, they're Democrats. So if you're complaining that the Democratic Party isn't supportive enough of Omar and Mamdani, then you're saying there are good Democrats out there. So you should support trying to reform the party, like what we're trying to do.
Wow. You know what? Hats off to you for dealing with the PDA person saying that to you. But their point is exactly why we can't continue to fight within the Democratic Party. We see Ilhan Omar is there. We also see what they put her through with the censures, with all of the retaliation against her. We see that, honestly, the majority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, is not going to endorse Zohran Mamdani, even when Zohran won overwhelmingly in his own district. You see Chuck Schumer could care less to endorse Zohran. You see that the Democratic Party will spend more, not just energy and time and talking points, they'll spend more money to get rid of any sort of leftism within their party, but then also spend the same amount of money to bolster up more conservative Republicans as well to win offices. We literally see Democrats pull together to rehabilitate Andrew Cuomo, who literally called on him to resign. Now they're trying to get rid of any type of leftism by getting rid of Zohran. And then on top of that too, whenever we do see leftists from the Democratic Party get into office, we quickly see a backsliding into the more establishment side of the Democratic Party too. So if all you're going to do is get there as a leftist and just be kind of like a mouthpiece for leftist ideology, but do nothing with it, to a point, you're either useless to us or you're hurting us by shepherding people into a burning building.
Goodness.
So what do we what do we do? Because we just agreed, I think, and I hate to say it because I really do want people to vote for Green candidates, but the Green Party is very, very small, and that trying to do that hasn't worked. I mean, let's be honest. It didn't work for Breonna Joy Gray, although I guess, she has a much bigger audience than I do, but, I guess a few people voted for, maybe a few more people voted for Jill Stein.
Jill Stein got less votes than she did against Hillary Clinton this time.
She did get fewer votes than against Hillary because the fear mongering, well, you can't, a vote for Stein is a vote for Trump, trumped the recognition that a vote for Harris was also a vote for Harris. So we're in a very bad space. Do you see Trump? What do you think will happen? Here's a point that I think, who made this? It was Ro Khanna who said that we have to win the Democrats have to win the midterms because he doesn't trust a House of Representatives under Mike Johnson to certify a 28 presidential election won by a Democrat. He doesn't trust him to do that. So your response to both of that, the chances the Democrats can win in 26, and again, more fear mongering really, but maybe legitimate. You have to vote for the Democrats no matter how bad they are, because otherwise in 28, J.D. Vance will be the certified president no matter how badly he loses.
Wow. I do think that, I don't know. I think that voting for having in the midterms, I do believe that Democrats will probably win back the House just because of the overwhelming kind of hatred of Trump so far, and just wanting there to be some form of checks and balances in it. Me personally, I don't know if yes. Off the top of my head, would I say that I think there could be a situation where Republicans in the House or Senate, whatever one is running the show at the moment, would vote to not certify and vote if the Democrat is the nominee? Possibly. Do I think that if Democrats are in charge and then there are voter issues and then a Republican wins the nomination, would they do anything to stop it if there was issues? No. So my thing is this: I don't trust Democrats as a stopgap at all. That's the thing. We see time and time again, Democrats will go out of their way to ensure that that Republicans get what they want at the end. So it's hard for me to think Democrats would do anything to stop a election mishap or to stop anything that Republicans do. I mean, you even saw when it came to voting for the funding of the government earlier on this year. Chuck Schumer found 10 votes to give it to the Republicans. And my thing is this: if the Democrats can't use their leverage that they have now to stop things, what makes me think with a little bit more power they're going to use their leverage then?
Yeah, I mean, this was a question I saw on Facebook, and I didn't cut it, but let's talk about it briefly, which was, what's your litmus test? That apparently the Vote Blue No Matter Who crowd is complaining that too many progressives have purity tests, that if Kamala, because she wouldn't do this, I won't vote for her. I don't care if Trump wins because Kamala side-eyed me. That's the Vote Blue No Matter Who crowd's response, attitude, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I respond. Do you have litmus tests or blue lines that you won't cross?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I definitely, universal healthcare is one.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Ending fracking is another one. Raising the minimum wage, and I'm past 15. We're going up to $25 an hour now. Ending private equity for homes, and also making public, making public college and universities tuition free, but also canceling student debt. Those are at my core, or in the genocide too. The genocide to me is kind of like a more so not.
That's
so
like a layup, right? It's a layup. It shouldn't even be Like,
This should
why
be
are
an
we even
easy
having
thing.
this conversation?
Yeah.
Your points are great points. And what I say to the vote blue no matter who crowd is, why don't you just change your, if you think you think it's so awful to help elect Trump by not voting for your candidate, why don't you change your policy so that we don't elect Trump? Because we could have beaten Trump, right? I thought this point about AOC, if she had gone to Harris and said, I'm not going to support you, I'm not going to rally my pretty large sized following to vote for you unless you convince me and you state publicly you're against the genocide and you'll stop it if you're president. If AOC had said that to Harris, maybe Harris does it, and then maybe Harris does become president.
Exactly. I mean, but remember, at that time, we were not calling it a genocide. We were not saying that we need to do like X, Y, and Z. People mostly just wanted Kamala Harris, one, to just call for a ceasefire. And then two, what they wanted her to do is just in the offensive weapons. People mostly weren't even saying in all weapons, just the offensive ones. And she wouldn't even do that. She wouldn't do what Marjorie Taylor Greene put in a bill to do. That's how pro-war Kamala Harris is.
Oh, yeah.
But also what I have to say to the whole vote blue no matter who crowd is, if vote blue no matter who was a real thing, you all would support the leftist candidates, but you don't. Because at the end of the day, when everyone said in 2020 that, I'll vote for a ham sandwich before I vote for Trump, and Trump's gonna lose, but then you saw a rally around, but it has to be Joe Biden. Well, hold up. You just said you would vote for anyone. So why don't you get behind the actual leftist candidate that has a base behind them rather than saying, I want this person who I know isn't going to do anything and just support the status quo. So I feel like this, if y'all don't want to support Zorhan and other leftist people, don't come to us and say we have to support the corporate candidate.
Well, Mamdani's a perfect example of that because he is the Democratic nominee. He won big against a really, truly corrupt Democrat. He got more than half the vote. The failure of Schumer and Jeffries to endorse him is just an absolute stain on their record. Do you agree that this is it's not a question of the party's stupid, the party makes mistakes. It's just that they're just corrupt. They're just corrupt. It's a cancer that is metastasized through this party. And the only solution is to, I guess, kill the patient and create a new, I don't know. What do we do?
I think that we're in like a weirdly catch-22 situation where it may be a little bit more painful for people to come out of the Democratic Party and into a third party, but to a point, that's kind of all we got. And I sometimes look at people who are the leftists who are still in the Democratic Party trying to change it, and sometimes I look at them and almost say like, you're part of the problem, because if you continue to make people think there's a way to change it, you continue to fuel a party that stays like this. And if you put half of your energy into trying to get people to support the Democratic Party as you did to try to build up another party, we actually might be somewhere. We actually might have a viable other party, at least not nationally, at least in multiple states. We could have a third party.
Yeah, that's exactly where I am, Carlos. Exactly. That these influencers and these institutions like PDA and Our Revolution, if they put their shoulders to the wheel to actually elect progressive leftists who are not Democrats, we could build something. But I think they're part of the same corrupt system. They're fundraising off of Democratic candidates, and they're fundraising off of Trump is the Antichrist, and
they try to make that win. The crazy part is for Our Revolution, because it was started by an independent senator and they're hold to a Democratic Party. It's like the person who started this wasn't even a Democrat. There shouldn't be this hold to a party that if Bernie Sanders wanted to be a Democrat, he would.
Yeah, he is. Well, he's a Democrat. Let's face it. He's functionally a Democrat. And he kind of serves as a sheepdog to keep any sheep from moving any farther to the left than he is. It's Yeah, it's very bad. The times are tough, and they're going to get worse. I have little hope. I'm sorry to say.
Same. I mean, I think that my hope comes from local candidates to change things, locally. I think nationally we're kind of screwed until people either wake up or people say, all right, cool, we're just done.
It's easy to say people need to wake up, but I have trouble even blaming voters at this point, because look at what happened in 24. There wasn't even a choice. There wasn't even a primary for the Democrats. There was, I guess there was sort of a primary, but not really. A legit one. You should have voted for Jill Stein. That's my answer. You should have voted for Jill Stein, but I get why people,
but a lot of people don't even know of Jill Stein past what they hear on the news of, like, she's the reason that Hillary Clinton lost. She's the reason we have Trump. It was some weird, also, I don't know if you saw it, this weird thing going around how she's a Russian back person too.
Yeah,
like
Russian
stuff
asset.
like that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the same talking points Democrats throw against anyone who doesn't like them. And
well, the media is so corrupt too. The media is, it's just in a few hands with.
Yeah. And then the crazy part is you can't just rely on independent media now, because as we saw in the Taylor Lorenz piece, they're buying off independent media, not telling anyone. They
are. I know. I know. I would make some joke about how I wouldn't mind getting some of that money, but I won't even say that. I'm not even gonna. I actually, though, before we go, Carlos, I will tell you, I did attend a call. I was on a call. I don't know if I ever said this during Halitics. I may have. Right after Trump was elected, and there was a call for people who were interested in being influencers or were interested in doing, this type of thing, podcasts, from the Democratic perspective. And somebody shared that with me, and I went on the call, and I knew I wasn't really interested, but I wanted to hear what they had to say. And they basically, maybe it was that group. It could have been that group chorus. I don't remember the name. I looked through my old emails. I couldn't find it. But they were going to give you classes, like how to build an audience, the different topics that you should be promoting, the talking points that you should use. And I went on and I just said, I actually spoke, and I said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to follow your guidance on how to build, support for the Democratic Party. That's not what I do. That's not what I want to do. I promote progressive and leftist solutions, which I think the Democrat Party is often against. I just said that. But I then went on, hey, I'd like some help, though. If you guys, even despite that, I think what I would do would be good for the Democratic Party, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it would benefit your party if I said these, if you help me build my podcast. And the guy said, send me your links. I want to see what you've done, because they were like impressed. I was further along than a lot of people, because I have a somewhat professional, semi-professional podcast, and I had several hundred subscribers, which was more than a lot of people at that point, or than a lot of people. So I did, and I never heard back from them. I thought they would at least respond, but he gave me the email. He sent me his email and all that, and I thought, wow, maybe they'll help me, but.
How they're going to watch and do Oppo research. That's what they were doing.
Saw what I did, and they're like, forget it.
Oh, this is a little too left for us. This is more than what we were thinking. Yeah,
it was very disappointing. I was hoping to get some help. All right, Carlos, anything else? Otherwise, you got it last word, but we're through for the hour at this point. Otherwise.
Awesome. No, I'm good. It's always good to be here, Hal. And as always, people keep on the lookout for what's happening in your communities, get involved locally, if anything, and as always, don't vote for Democrats.
We'll have Carlos back again soon. We're going to figure out how to make this a regular weekly thing if we aren't already. I will be back tomorrow. It's an Arlen Tuesday, and also want to billboard, folks, and for Carlos too. I have this guest. I've had her, I think, just once, but I'm so glad to have back this week. She's an environmental scientist. This is terrible. She's a dog lover. Now I can't remember her name, and I can even see her Facebook profile pic, but I can't. Anyway, she's awesome. She'll be on Wednesday, so we have lots of great guests this week, and I'll tell you tomorrow who that is.
It.
Oh, this is terrible. How can I not remember that lady's name?
And once you get off, it'll pop in your head too.
Of course. All right. I'll be back tomorrow. Carlos will be on soon. Take care. Thanks for being part of Halitics.